Hey y'all, I'm Little Flix and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and kind of a review kind of aspect thing to season 1 of Dollhouse. I just firstly want to say sorry this took so long to come out. I've actually had a really busy week. It was a long weekend where I live in Australia, so I had to work a lot. So I didn't really have time to do it until now. And I've also kind of been working up on a script. So if you kind of see my eyes vert down, that's kind of what I'm referring back to, just because I have like 5 pages here and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So I thought for starters, we'll just get into my general thoughts and feelings of Dollhouse season 1. So I really enjoyed the first season. It took a bit longer than usual for me to get into it, and I think that's just because the first 5 episodes were done in that structure for the network at the time. I felt like more invested with Buffy and Firefly once I got into Firefly, because that took me a while too, actually. But but as soon as really, I think it was episode 6, Man on the Street. Once that really hit, I was super invested in it. And the characters and the world that was created, I thought was really awesome and very interesting. And I kind of really like this show. And I feel like this might upset some people, but I feel like I might like it better than Firefly. I don't know about that though. Firefly's so good. But no, I really did enjoy this first series, and I'm really enjoying the show, and I don't really know why more people don't watch this one of Joss Whedon, because it's fantastic. So I know that a lot of people might not have agreed with what I said in terms of the episode Haunted, and after reflection, I don't actually think it was that bad of an episode. I didn't think it was bad. I agree with Marcy Ross's comment that I was really just yearning for the Alpha storyline to keep going and to find out more about that. So yeah, I didn't realize as well at the time, obviously, because everything's in retrospect here, how important that episode actually really is. It gives you the first piece of information about Rossum's true intentions with the Dollhouse, and that is something that I believe someone did state, but I can't find the comment anymore, so I don't know where it went. I also made a comment in one of the comments that I felt maybe the placement of the show was, the episode was a little off, kind of like Go Fish in season 2 of Buffy. I don't really agree with that anymore. I think if I was binge watching this, I might actually need a bit of a break from like all the high tension and everything that was going on in the story at the time. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I agree with that anymore, because I don't know where else you kind of would put this this episode in, because within the series the technology advances, and you can't really put that at the start when Topher's technology and what we've seen the Dollhouse been capable of, like in True Believer with making Echo's eyes a camera. I don't think it would have really made sense, because as it went along, the natural progression of the show, and any show is changing, and that is the technology. So I actually probably think it's a good placement for the episode. But at the time, I was really just yearning for Alpha, so I was a bit disappointed because I was expecting to get back into that at the time. However, I don't know if I still 100% agree with the placement, even though I think I do, until I do a rewatch. So I think that's all I can really say at this point. So my top 3 favorite episodes. The first is Briar Rose. That was just a banger of an episode. It was so good. I was so surprised with Alpha, and I don't know, it was just fantastically paced for me, and I was just in shock that it was him, and it was great. It was a really good episode, and that was definitely one of my favorites, absolutely. The second I've actually put as A Spy in the House of Love. For me, that was really interesting because it was very high tensioned and the music was really interesting throughout that episode and it created that tension. And I really just, I can't get out that image of Dominic's mind being erased kind of thing. And that's, it's, it was pretty appalling. But it was just such a good episode, and the reveal of Melly to Paul being a doll was also very shocking. So I've picked that for my second. And for my third episode, I've actually chosen Epita 1. And it was kind of hard to pick that between Man on the Street. But the reason why I chose Epita 1 is because the impression it left on me after watching it, even after weeks of watching it, it was such a thought-provoking science fiction text for me. And I love science fiction texts. I love science fiction in general, and I love reading science fiction as well. I love reading more soft science fiction, which is just a term for science fiction text that looks at more of the human condition and sociological issues within whatever premise that the story is. And it was just such a thought-provoking and eye-opening kind of episode. And I really think that would be like an awesome spin-off series just in itself, either as a book or either as a television series. I would be down for that 100% because it was really, as I've said, a thought-provoking text, and it just left you with this feeling. You know, it was just such an interesting way to kind of wrap up the season on the DVDs. And it makes you feel a little less excited for what the Dollhouse is doing, in a sense. So for me, the best twists and information for this first season, in regards to the technology, how Topher was able to develop it within a short amount of time in the season, and probably his time within the company, based on the flashback scenes in Epita 1. I've already mentioned it, making Echo's eyes a camera in True Believer was pretty impressive technology-wise. Imprinting someone with someone else's brain scan so they become that person, so life after death. That was obviously haunted, and mainly what happened in Epita 1. It's kind of like a really scary thing to kind of think about. And another thing that was really interesting was in Briar Rose. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right before. Topher was able to create a whole new personality. The same personality but older, based on an existing brain scan, which is pretty interesting, and kind of tweak it. Like he said, he tweaked names and dates, but overall it was the same brain, just when she was older. So that was really interesting as well. So now I'm going to just quickly talk about the characters. So Echo is obviously the main character, and Caroline. I really enjoyed watching the season go by and getting pieces of information about Caroline, and we're still not 100% clear on that, so that is really cool that there's still a lot of information to learn in season 2. I think that I've seen a lot of people and a lot of reviews, not people in the comments, just around, and one of my friends included, that they don't think Eliza Dushku had the acting range to pull this off. I honestly don't feel that. I think she did a really good job, and I enjoy watching her, and I enjoy watching her physical acting as well. It does remind me a little bit of Faith, of course, but I just think that she's a really good physical actor as well, and that's always really interesting to watch. So I don't necessarily agree with a lot of people on that. I didn't really find that taking me out of the story or noticing it, because I thought she did a really good job. Sierra, So Sierra, she's kind of a bit of a tortured soul, hey? I do feel sorry for her. She, was not only abused in the dollhouse, but she was abused in her real life. And from memory, I think I need to go back and watch it though. From memory, that's part of the reason why she got to the dollhouse or something. But I really like her and Victor's dynamic together. They're really cute. And I really do like Victor. I started off not really liking his character because at the time I thought he was just this Russian guy. But when he was revealed to be a doll, it was infinitely more interesting. And as the season progressed, especially Needs, I started to really love all those characters. And especially Victor in that one. I think that was really good. As well as Echoes when Topher made him NSA, which is really funny because Dominic is NSA. So I really like those two together and dynamic, and I'm looking forward to that being explored 100% in season 2. And if it's not, I'm going to be angry. So Melly/November, that was a whirlwind. Finding out that she was a sleeper active during that attempted murder scene of her, that was really, I think from my reaction, that was not expected. I should have possibly maybe tried to pick up on something like that, but I didn't. It was a really good twist for me. Oh yeah, I didn't mention I just mentioned information above. Best twist for me was Melly being a sleeper active, who Alpha was, and that Adele was Miss Lonely Hearts, as well as freaking Saunders being a freaking doll. Oh, I still can't get over that. But yeah, those for me were the best twists. Let's get back to the characters now. Melly, adorable, really sweet character, totally head over heels for Paul. As I think she said her name was Madeline. Yeah. Probably a tortured soul a bit too with the death of her daughter. That would really suck. I don't think we might meet her again, maybe in an episode or 2, maybe in season 2, but I'm not really expecting to see her anymore. Paul negotiated her freedom, which was really cute. So to me, she's kind of finished and she's gone, but they might meet her out in the real world or something like that. That could be interesting, but I'm not really expecting that. But this is Joss Whedon, so never know. Adele. Adele is a really interesting character. She's so ruthless, yet they've done a really good job at making her feel human. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all flawed. That's what being human is. But Adele, she does some horrible things for the dollhouse. One thing is using Melly to kill whatever his face was, I don't remember, because who cares about that guy? Another is, just making these people consent to this. Dominic, that was really horrible. Making his, also implanting him into Victor's body. That would have been a really bad experience, I'm sure, for Dominic, and it was. So she does some really, and even everyone else says they're Echo and Needs were saying that I will put this bullet where your heart should have been, and even Dominic in Spy in the House of Love said you're a piece of work, and she goes, everyone tells me that, so she knows that she's not loved or well received. But at the end of the day, especially with that episode, finding out that she's Miss Lonely Hearts, there is something really deep down inside that is missing, or she feels that she's lacking in her life. Even though you can tell that she does kind of care for these people in her own way though. But she was not on board with the whole making people using the actors' bodies to imprint people into them so they could live forever kind of thing. She had no idea that was what was really happening, and she did not want to be a part of that. And she made her decision to, in Epitaph 1 to Epitaph, I don't know what it's called. She made her decision there to kind of stay with the people who aren't being imprinted with personalities. So she kind of did a whole backflip on her own philosophy, which was interesting. And it'll be really interesting to see how they develop her character, if they make her more human, if they make her more ruthless. I'm expecting it to be the same balance with some more information about herself coming through to make it a bit more clouded on how you feel about her. Boyd. Oh, I love Boyd. Him and Echo's dynamic is so good. It's one of the most enjoyable parts of the series. And I do kind of miss them, like him being her handler, but she still trusts him, and that's still really cute. So it'd be interesting to see how their relationship progresses with him being the head of security, and whether he stays head of security, or whether he stays in the dollhouse. But I feel like at this point he will. And I really was hardcore shipping him and Saunders, as everyone knows. And that the last episode was really eye-opening because it looked like they were a couple, but I didn't get to see it. So I'm hoping that if that's the direction they're taking it, I hope that happens in season 2. I'll be shipping it regardless. But it was interesting because I thought that wouldn't happen when I found out that she was a doll, because it would be very tainted for them both, I felt. But it seems that she stays as Saunders, so maybe she doesn't want to be who she was, which is interesting to think about, because how could you objectively make that choice when you have no idea who you were? But I guess she probably figures that she's in the dollhouse for a reason. But I'm really looking forward to those two's dynamic. I really love Saunders. I love Amy Acker. So I'm really looking forward to her hopefully being in more episodes in season 2, and their dynamic together as well. Topher. I started off a little sketchy with Topher. I wasn't sure if he was like a good guy or not, but I love Topher. His sense of humor is hilarious. He's a big child at heart. And I also just love him. I loved him in Cabin in the Woods as well. He was hilarious there as well. So I think he plays comedy really well and makes it a likable performance as well. And Topher was really interesting. He broke down in the last episode. You know, he just questioned everything in himself, and that was really heartbreaking to see. So if that is kind of like a prophecy almost of what's going to happen in season 2, maybe some new person will come in and be more smarter than him in terms of the technology or something, but that's just a really long shot guess. Dominic, didn't like him at all, never did, but he didn't deserve that. It was really interesting. In the Spy House of Love, when him and Echo were in the car and the van, and he was smiling, and she goes, "What are you smiling at?" He's like, "You'll destroy him and they won't even see it coming," kind of thing. That was a really interesting piece of foreshadow. And someone, I haven't double checked who, so I apologize. They did state that when you do go back and watch the season, a lot of what Dominic says is very foreshadowing. I don't know if he will come back, but he came back in Epitaph 1 as himself in his body, so that's interesting. But in terms of season 2, he might be mentioned and they might imprint him into someone else's body again, but I don't think he will be back, the actor. Paul. I started off not really liking Paul's story. I thought it was kind of boring because I thought he was a bit boring. But boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I really loved Paul's story in the end. I don't really know how to pronounce the actor's name, so I apologize. I'm not even going to try because I think I'll just butcher it and offend everyone. But he's a really good physical actor, and I've looked up because I saw someone in Liam Duke's comments say that he was like did karate or something. So that was really cool. So apparently he does like all or most of his stunts. So that's really cool. And you can tell, I really enjoyed his whole journey to finding the dollhouse, and that including Melly's reveal and him finding out Victor, and that his whole life has been kind of a lie and that they've intervened so many times. It was really interesting. And I really look forward to seeing how it seems like he's working with the dollhouse now. So I'd be really interested to see him working with the dollhouse and what that means. And if the last episode's any indication, he was obviously still going to be trying getting Caroline out, which, as I said at the end of my last reaction, that doesn't surprise me that he's still doing that. It's so true to his character and who he is, which is really just trying to help everyone he can. And last but not least, Alpha. We don't really have a lot of information about Alpha to really make a distinction. What we do know is that his name, I cannot remember. He was actually in prison, and in the very beginning of the Dollhouse, they offered prisoners with less sentences to kind of be experimented in on the Dollhouse. Paul said that he doesn't think you can strip away someone's soul, which is the true identity at the core of who they are, which is probably why Alpha showed signs of, I want to say deviancy, because I've been playing Detroit Become Human and I'm like obsessed with it. I finished it in like 3 days, but I can't say that. But he was showing signs of being unstable, I think is probably the best way of saying it. And it probably was his true self. Was it Kramer or something? No, not Kramer. I can't remember his name, but that was coming through with how he kind of became obsessed with Caroline, who looked very similar to the victim that they questioned. We didn't see the questioning, but we saw her scars on the face. Beautiful, pale, brown hair, So that's interesting as well. And then he became obsessed with her and then attacked Whiskey in the same way that he attacked women to get him into prison. So that's really interesting as well, because it does seem you cannot strip out someone's true person, or as Paul says, their soul. So that probably will come into play, and is probably the reason why Echo is showing similar signs. And maybe more people will show those signs in season 2. But boy, oh boy, Alan Tudyk, amazing. He is amazing. I've only ever seen him in comedic roles, Firefly obviously being the main one, and Joss Whedon, the Whedonverse, and Dodgeball. I'm sure I've probably seen him in other things, I just can't think. Those are the two that I definitely know, and Serenity. And I won't say that in case people haven't seen Serenity, but people who have seen it probably know what I was going to say. But he really is a fantastic actor. He was so scary when he switched and we knew he was Alpha, and amazing performance. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him some more in season 2, like a lot more. I want more Alpha still, because I just want to see how amazing he is. So I'm looking forward to that, hopefully. So I've kind of said some things that I would like to see and some things that I think might happen in season 2. But overall, I still don't really know 100% what the premise will be for the second season. So that's going to be really interesting going in. I'm expecting, obviously, to see some more engagements and finding out more information about who the dolls actually were before they came to the dollhouse. And maybe the destruction of the dollhouse, maybe. I don't know. But then I keep thinking that, like, Epitaph 1 was like a prophecy, as I said before, so I don't know if that will actually happen, but it'll be really interesting to see, because I know that season 2 does officially end. It wraps up the season, the series, sorry. So I'll be really excited to see how they end it. So now I want to jump on to the themes of Dollhouse that I personally have noticed. Some of it might seem a bit far-fetched, but I got into like kind of a research-ish mode, and I do see the connection myself. So hopefully it doesn't seem like I'm just blurting bullshit to you guys. First off, identity. I've mentioned it so many times in the season, but really, like, identity, really everyone's self-identity, meaning their qualities, their beliefs, their personality, and the expression of who they are, as well as their self-image, is compromised with the Dollhouse. They lose all their individuality while doing their contract, but even though they get to become others, they're not really themselves at all. Even when they're in the sleeping kind of stage, they're very childlike and simple, I guess is a way to say it. And who they really are that they've made for themselves is gone. It's just taken away during their contract. I think that this is like a fear that some people have and worry about, losing who they are and being lost. I think feeling lost and isolated is a very big theme as well in other Joss Whedon projects. Mainly what comes to my mind is Buffy's character herself. She always feels isolated and sometimes lost within her Slayer side of herself. But for me, it's just a really interesting point made. It's just a really interesting point to kind of think about in the terms of really fearing of losing yourself, and a good social commentary on humanity and society at the moment. Well, back then as well, and it's still relevant today. I think that is always going to be relevant. You know, I think waking up one day and forgetting who you are and everything would be terrible. Yeah, very terrible. So that was an interesting little thing I picked up on. So the second thing I would like to talk about is illusion. So illusion, for me, really the main point and the obvious one is the Dollhouse is all really an illusion. It creates pure illusions of people for other people, aka clients, for their needs and wants in that particular moment in their life. Everything about the Dollhouse is an illusion. And also the Dollhouse has reconstructed Paul's life, making that into somewhat an illusion with Melly and Victor being in it. And making him question what's real in his life, or if it was a lie, or, you know, how he really felt about his life in the end. And also another thing that I picked up on is the illusion of control. Adele believed that she was always in control. She was always in control of the Dollhouse and what they were doing and what the objective was, but Rossum had other ideas and plans for it. She believed in the moment that they could tame Alpha before he broke free, and she thought she could make amends, I think, somewhat of Alpha's behavior with keeping Echo in check and in control and making sure that wouldn't happen again. Though this whole Echo is still being up in the air of how much she will become or how much she will show similar signs of Alpha's behavior. And also the whole episode of Needs was really an illusion for the dolls to create that satisfaction completion thing or whatever it was. I can't really remember how it was described, but really that whole episode is an illusion. So I definitely found that illusion, and of course, like, even every single person that the doll is imprinted with is an illusion. Everything is just an illusion. So I found that very interesting. Another thing that I did pick up on is dualism. It's something that I've mentioned quite a bit in season 1, especially with Taffy looking into the picture and projecting the broken parts onto herself, to Echo looking at herself in the mirror later on in the series, which is in the title sequence as well. So basically, duality means the quality or condition of being dual, which is something the dolls constantly are. They are themselves, deep down inside, and then they're whoever the Dollhouse makes them or wants them to be. And because that they are themselves deep down inside, it's showing these signs of them trying to break free, which is what Echo has done, and it's what Alpha has been shown to have done. But in terms of philosophy in the mind-body dualism area, It's the position that the mind and body are in some way separate from each other, but Descartes also states that they are still closely joined. And with keeping this in mind, I think this principle is a really interesting way of looking at the dolls and the show as a whole, because they can remove the person they once were and imprint them with a new personality or person that we've now seen that can happen. And it does play into the whole mind-body being separated theory. But what happens when the mind is completely stripped away and is injected with a new mind and a new person in regards to the body of the person who they are inside? That's something that I struggled to kind of try and find an answer in Dollhouse. I don't think it states it quite yet. And I struggled to find an answer in philosophy. I'm not a philosopher, obviously. I did do philosophy in VCE, so that's why I kind of think I picked up on some of these philosophical points and wanted to talk about it. But I don't really know what that would mean. Yeah, because, dualism states different people's views obviously is different, and some believe that the soul is what makes up the essence of a person, and that's what a person is, and other people think that the mind is the non-physical, whereas the body is the physical, and if you take the mind out of the body cannot think for itself, kind of thing, so therefore it works together but it's separate. But what happens when you take out someone's completely their essence and their mind, not their brain, because that is the scientific thing, just the essence and the mind of who people are. You take that out, and what are people left with? A new person inside, but it's still the other person's brain inside their body. It's a really weird, trippy kind of concept, and I think that's a really interesting way to kind of look at the Dollhouse and the ethics of it as well. And another theme that I have picked up on is determinism versus free will. Determinism is the belief that every event, action, or moral choice is already determined by previously existing causes, events, and actions. So basically everything is already pre-planned, and we're just living a life that was designed for us based on events that have already happened. However, free will obviously means that we are in control of our actions and destiny because we can freely choose. I think this is a really interesting concept to think about in terms of the Dollhouse. On one hand, actions have consequences is a very important line that we hear twice in the first episode. And to me, I'm reading this as Echo's and the other dolls' own free will got them into the position when they had to consent to the Dollhouse's contract. But you could be like, was that already predetermined? But in the sake of this argument, I'm going to say that was their free will. Because once they're in the Dollhouse, they fall into the determinism side. Who they are, who they will become, what they do, even to some extent what they do out on their engagements is all pre-planned and determined for them by the Dollhouse. However, we do see Echo pushing back and trying to let her free will come into play, which then I think connects with the whole dualism and what Paul was saying, we can't wipe who people are at the core. But the general idea is that they have no option but to do what is determined for them, and that is really what they have to do in the Dollhouse. They've consented to this, so they really have no option once they're there, in the general premise of it, without really going into like Echo pushing back on the system kind of thing. And because determinism says every event is caused by previous events, an agent, in this case an active, they can never have done anything other than what they did. Therefore, they can never truly be free. Which really fits into the whole Dolls contract. And that's a bit of a mind bend. I think it's also kind of fun to think of whether the Dollhouse's path with body swaps with their clients into the actors was determined in this concept. Therefore, the future in 2019 was always going to happen no matter what they did. Or was it a future that was created by the individual's free will? And I've probably thought about this too much, but that's just a little something I think is kind of fun to think about for myself anyway when I continue on to season 2. The last thing I want to talk about in a theme sense is existentialism. This is a philosophical theory or approach which emphasizes the existence of the individual person as a free or responsible agent, determining their own development through acts of free will. This is a concept that is in so much of Joss Whedon's work, especially in Buffy, but let's just stick to Dollhouse for now. So dolls aren't free nor responsible for what they do on engagements, since their memories are wiped and they can't take ownership over their actions. So therefore they aren't really active agents in their own lives. This is being done to them, not them doing it to themselves. Sure, they have consented to this being done to them once they enter the dollhouse, but once that they're in, they can't actually consent with who they get imprinted with or what happens to them while they're there. So really, they lose all control over themselves and their development. They're not determining their own development through free will. It's being decided for them while they're in the dollhouse. Therefore, the dollhouse is deciding who they are. The show has hinted that these imprints and experiences does affect their real life personas and who they are at their core. So therefore, in my mind, the dollhouse is actually creating their individual development if it's affecting their real life personas. Their free will and identity has literally been stripped away, so they're not the ones who actually are determining their future by their own choices, because those choices are not actually theirs to make. It's the dollhouse's. And as I just said, the dollhouse is affecting their real life personas. They're actually creating their individual person's path. So that's really a bleak way of looking at it, I guess. But it's actually a really interesting thing. And maybe you guys disagree. Maybe you feel like because Echo and Alpha and stuff, and maybe more in the future, are actually making decisions for themselves and they're becoming more active, which I do agree with. They are becoming more active, but the general premise overall in the first season is this. And I think that in season 2, this will probably break down the walls of that, and they will push through and start making their own individual choices. But that's just a little something that I've picked up on as well. And yeah, that pretty much concludes my long-winded, basically philosophical review of the Dollhouse. But yeah, I don't know if this will be received well. I hope that you guys did enjoy some things I did mention. I kind of want to look at it in a bit of more of an analytical way, and that's kind of what I picked up on so far. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I should be starting season 2 very shortly, so keep your eyes out for that. And I really hope you did actually enjoy this and found some things interesting. I am worried that a lot of people might not like it, but hey, that's my thoughts and opinions anyway. So thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys when I start season 2 in the next few weeks. And let's enjoy the crazy ride of season 2 that I'm sure it will be. Thank you so much again for watching, guys. Bye!